Late last night, key U.S. senators reached an agreement on a draft resolution authorizing the use of military force against Syria, but it comes with conditions. Any military action would be limited to 60 days with the possibility of a 30-day extension. It would also ban the use of forces on the ground. Approval of the draft is expected possibly as early as today. Joining us now from Washington is former Republican strategist Beau Phillips. Good morning, Mr. Phillips. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
It was such an interesting afternoon to watch the proceedings, the Congress and the Senate and John McCain. Were you surprised that at the end of the day they reached agreement?
No, I'm not surprised. Unfortunately, this is the sort of thing where no matter how you got there or how awful the process has been or how many Americans are actually opposed to it, it's the sort of thing you just have to put your head down and actually get done. American credibility has been put on the line by the president when he went out and made his red line in the sand declaration. And so now the Congress really, even though they don't like it, has no choice but to sort of go along for the ride and not undercut their president.
And then in terms of representation, you did mention, Americans against it. Poll after poll has shown that the, U.S. citizens are not in favor of it. I think the last one, 55% of them, which puts, certainly not just the Republicans, but everybody, in a difficult position.
Yeah, there's pretty, across the board, regardless of political affiliation, there's pretty heavy opposition among the American public to getting involved in any way in Syria. And you could see why. You have a monster on one side that's gassing his citizens, and you have people that are affiliated with al-Qaeda on the other side, radical Islamists on the other side. So which one of those two horrible sides do you want to be on? But once the president went out and said, in frankly a very amateur way that sort of shows his lack of experience in foreign policy, said this is the red line, and if you cross the red line, we're going to have to act. Everybody in the White House was sort of shocked when he did that. That wasn't part of the plan for the day. But once he does that, he puts American might and American credibility on the line. Unfortunately, the Congress, which wants to have no part of this, has no choice but to sort of come along and back him up on that. Otherwise, every dictator in the region knows that there's no consequence for using chemical weapons or even nuclear weapons.
Yeah. So the president has the red line, but then it ends up being John McCain that has to make the case. In Washington yesterday afternoon, how do you think he did?
I think John McCain did fine. I think John Kerry really is the big story, though, the Secretary of State. You look at these two people, John Kerry and Barack Obama, boy, what a difference. You have a Secretary of State who's been, a foreign affairs diplomat for 30 years, and you see what a real expert looks like when he's trying to make the case here. You look at President Obama, sort of has fumbled and bumbled and stumbled over the last week and a half, and you realize this is a guy that was fixing parking tickets in the Illinois State Senate 7.5 years ago. The differences really, really show. Secretary Kerry, I'm no political fan of his, but he has acquitted himself incredibly well in trying to sell this policy.
And so, and what happens with regard to the comments that Ban Ki-moon has made, saying any action taken without, the approval of the United Nations would be illegal?
Well, we've been busy ignoring the United Nations for 5 decades. I don't think one more is going to hurt anybody. I respect that it would be better if we had a global coalition. It would be better if the United Nations was on board here, but President Obama simply failed to sell it. And now we're in a situation where we can take our ball and go home, or we can realize that this is America, and for better or worse, while we don't want to be the world's policeman, great nations don't stand aside when despots gas their own people.
Interesting. Beau Phillips, thank you kindly for your expertise.